Good afternoon and welcome. You're listening live to Heart-to-Heart, a program which aims to help you understand and to become your loving self at KMET 1490 AM, ABC Radio Live, and live. Did I say live?
You said live.
I said live, live,
Yes,
live. Okay.
Yes, live.
I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidi, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in full-time private practice located in beautiful Encino, California. And I'm here with my colleague, best friend, and business partner, Dr. Robert Jaffe, who's going to introduce himself, and we're going to be listening to him at this hour.
Great. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Today, we always talk about addictions
And introduce yourself.
Oh, introduce myself. Yes. Okay. So thank you. I'm Dr. Robert Jaffe. I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist, certified hypnotherapist as well, and been in private practice full-time since 1984. And I specialize in addictions, codependency, trauma, and relationships, those four areas. Usually when I tell people that, they say, "Oh, you mean everybody?" So I'm not going to say it's ubiquitous throughout the world, but it is definitely very, very common. It's common. Unfortunately, it's common um, in all countries. In some countries, more prevalent than in others. But addiction, codependency, and trauma and relationship issues are also common. And I think it has a lot to do with where we are as a human species, where we are in a development uh, as human beings. My belief is that we are human beings, and the human part of us is the part that is rooted here in our bodies. It's here in time and space. It sees our bodies as solid, and it believes that we are our bodies, and it believes that we don't exist without our bodies. And so our bodies become the focal point of every interaction that we have. And, and the survival of our bodies becomes the most important thing. And what we need to understand about that is that we have an ego self, and the ego is that part of us that watches out for our survival. So the ego is that part of us that has a lot of fear, and fear is the most powerful emotion that we have available to us to make sure that our bodies survive. So when we feel in danger in any way, our fear comes to us, and our fear tells us what to do. Our fear tells us, "Oh, we better be careful here. Oh, something may happen. Oh, this person looks dangerous. Oh, I better take precautions. Oh, I'm not going to go out late at night." Um, and all sorts of other things that our fear tells us in order to keep ourselves physically safe. And is that important? Well, of course, it's very, very important. Um, so uh, we are born with egos, with the realization that we are in our bodies, and most people don't even think of it that way. They just think that they are their bodies, and that without their bodies, that they're not going to exist. A lot of people believe that. I'm not one who subscribes to that. I think that there's a lot more to us as human beings, and I think that our bodies are very important while we're on this earth and while we're on this plane, and we have to do our best to make sure that our bodies not only survive, but are also healthy and can take us from place to place and help us experience the many things that this world has to offer to us. So that is our ego self. The other part of ourself is the being. So we're human beings. The being part of us from my understanding and my experience and belief, is that is the part of us that is not connected with our bodies. That is the part of us that is, if you will, called our spirit. Some people call it our soul, and that part of us is eternal because that part of us can't be exterminated. Um, and so what we our bodies are also connected with our brain. Our brain is part of our bodies. So if we don't have our brain, are we us? And that, of course, brings up a big question, right? If we don't have the brain that we have, are we still us? And I believe the answer is yes. But the us that we are is not our personality. It's an us that knows that we exist. And there are a lot of books and papers written on what that us actually is. I'm not going to get into that here, but I believe that there is an us, but it's not our personality. So uh, most of psychology has dealt with the ego. Mm-hmm. and, yes. and how people protect themselves, and and how they can lead healthier lives by recognizing what they're doing to bring their subconscious minds to consciousness so that they have more choices available to them. And I am a big believer in that. I think it's very, very valuable. I think that there's also another aspect to psychology, which is an even deeper aspect, which is our spiritual selves. And I think if psychology doesn't bring that in as part of itself, and part of its inquiry, it's doing the human race a big disservice. Right. So that being said, I just want to give you a sense of my beliefs and where I'm coming from. And so talking now about codependency, codependency and addiction, and addictions are, uh, are, I'm not going to say ubiquitous, but very, very common throughout the world and throughout our society. And the reason for that is because we have emotional pain. We also have physical pain, but most people get addicted not out of physical pain. There are people who do get addicted as a result of physical pain, but most people who have addictions and have trouble eliminating their addictions do so out of emotional pain.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you want to say something?
No, I'm
okay. Yeah,
please continue, because this is so important. I don't want to interrupt it.
Okay. Yeah, so emotional pain means that we are separated from our being self. And that means that all of our energy goes into physical survival and things that we believe are going to make us feel safe. And so what are the things in our life that the ego believes will make it feel safe? The answer to that, for the most part, is a four-letter word, and we call that four-letter word more. The ego believes that the more that we have, the safer we are.
But yeah, that definitely makes sense. That's why people are after more money. They are after bigger house. They are after better jobs. They are after, more expensive, car, or more expensive traveling. It is as though all that external factors defines who they are.
Yes, it defines who they are, and it also gives people a sense of safety.
Right.
Right. So, does having a lot of money in the bank make you safe? Well, I'm going to say that the answer is yes and no. It does make you safer, perhaps, in a way that's related to our physicality, uh, with respect to how well we can take care of ourselves. So we can certainly buy the best medical care if we have a lot of money, and we can make our lives a lot more comfortable if we have a lot of money. So in that way, the answer is yes, we are safer. However, what it doesn't give us is a feeling that that we are connected to something that is meaningful to us.
Otherwise, it doesn't make us really happy.
It doesn't make us
It
happy.
makes it convenient, but it doesn't really bring us happiness.
Right, because we're not connected
Right.
to anything that provides us emotional, psychological, and spiritual sustenance.
Exactly.
And so that has to do with the other side of the human being, which is the being, which is about connecting with other people at deep levels, and kindness and appreciation and gratitude, and above all, love.
Right.
Right. And so when we have love, that love is the essence of who we are as spiritual beings. So when we have love in our lives, what we feel is a sense of oneness, and we don't feel that alone feeling, and we don't feel afraid of things in the same way that we do when we don't have love. And so that's why I have devoted my life, and you have devoted your life, to helping people learn the difference between the spirit and the ego, and learning how to align ourselves more with spirit. That doesn't mean eliminating the ego, but it means aligning ourselves more with spirit, so that we feel more connected with the deeper part of ourselves, and with other people at the deepest levels. So,
And you're talking about codependency, and we have in the past, introduced codependency as the biggest addiction.
yes, yes,
right?
Yes.
And everything that you're talking about, is part of codependency.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right. Codependency is an addiction to another person,
right.
Saying that if the other person is if the other person is willing to show me what I believe is caring, and show me what I believe is love, uh, then then I'm safe. So then my energy has to go into convincing the other person that they cannot live without me, because the other person is the determinant of whether I'm safe in the world and whether I am loved in the world. So now my energy has to go into proving that I am lovable and worthy and safe to the other person. And the way that I can do that is by making the other person count on me. So I can have the other person depend on me. So I will do things to make the other person need me.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if the other person needs me and they can't do without me, then they will never leave me, and then I will be safe in the world.
Wow, this is such a profound description that you provided about what codependency actually does,
Mm-hmm.
and how it operates.
Yes.
Yes, it's like, in a way, while a person is dependent on the other, the same person is actually controlling the other.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And so one of the big fallacies in codependency is the belief that that I have the power to make you need me, and that and so I am the most important person in the world to you, and you have the power to make me need you, and so therefore you are the most important person in the world to me, as opposed to we are all free, and we get to determine within ourselves whether we want to express our truth, or change our truth in order to get the other person to feel as though they can't live without me.
Wow. Okay. I'm glad I didn't say all of that, because I wouldn't be able to repeat it back.
we talk a lot about our authentic true self.
Right,
and
right.
The authentic true self is free to choose. In a codependent relationship, that the freedom doesn't exist, because each person is busy trying to make the other person need them so much that they have to alter their behavior in ways that suggest that each person needs the other person so much that they can't do without them.
Right, right. And we see so many of these couples in our practice.
Yes.
I think one of the main issues that brings them to therapy is the issue of codependency.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then they introduce themselves that I'm such a caring person, that I do everything for this person, that I don't eat until they start to eat, I don't sleep until they go to bed. They say they become such a caregiver, they become so many things that is primarily what they're describing is how much they're giving themselves away.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
For the sake of maintaining a relationship, where in fact, and then once they don't get some of that back, right? And usually they don't get any of that back.
Well,
right?
usually the partner of a person who says, the person that you're describing, I do everything for that
Right.
person, the other person says, I can't move without them having a comment on it.
Right.
See, I'm not free, I'm being
Right.
smothered.
Right.
I'm being smothered. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, we're keeping these people this way trapped in a bubble, emotional bubble.
Right.
That this type of people, they create a prison for the other person.
Exactly, and the other person has a part in it as well.
Yes,
and
of course.
And we will talk about that as well
after our
when we come back from our commercial break.
Wonderful.
Okay, so see you soon.
At 3:00 p.m. Join us. Welcome back from our commercial break. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at Heart-to-Heart program at KMET 1490 AM, ABC News Radio Live. We are talking about codependency, addictions, trauma, and relationships, and we would like to hear from you. Our phone number here is 951-922-3532, and please feel free to introduce this program to those that you believe can benefit from our conversations. And you can also visit us at our YouTube program, heart-2-heart.online/YouTube. And I think I said our phone number, but it doesn't hurt to say it again.
It doesn't hurt.
951-922-3532. And please, if you're not comfortable to call us online live, we completely understand that. So we do welcome your emails, and our contact information are listed at KMET, homepage, and we're happy to receive your calls and or your emails.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So Dr. Robert Jaffe, you were talking.
I was talking about different aspects of codependency, and we were talking about a couple. One example of codependency, and there are a number, but the one that we were talking about is where one person, if they come into couples counseling, one person says, I do everything for him or her, and I take care of them. I bring home the money, or I take care of the kids, or I make the meals, or I take his suit to the cleaner, or
take the garbage out.
Yeah, I do all of these things, and all I ask is a little bit in return. And I said, and then from the other person's point of view, often the other person feels smothered, right? Because the other person will say, he or she, whoever the partner is, doesn't leave me alone, and is so and is always in everything. And has an interest in every decision I make, and I feel like I'm not free. I feel like I can't go out without telling him or her where I'm going and how long I'm going to be there, and everything. So that's one form of codependency. So we understand that the person who is, let's say, the one doing everything for the other person, what they're doing, and what makes it codependent is they're trying to, I'm going to use the word infantilize. They're trying to infantilize their partner to make their partner feel dependent on them. So, so the partner doesn't feel free, and the partner then the partner thinks, well, then my partner will never leave me because my partner needs me too much. So that's that person in their mind. They're trying to create that neediness in the partner.
Mhm.
And then the partner on the flip side of it uh, doesn't feel like they can take care of themselves. So they're attracted to another partner who says, I'll take care of you. So the partner who is attracted to that does feel like they can't take care of themselves, allows their partner to do everything for them, but then also feels resentful and rebellious toward their partner. And in a way, it sort of replicates a parent child relationship.
Yeah.
And so the needy, the partner who believes they can't take care of themselves is stuck in the child's part, and the other part is stuck in the over controlling parent part, and they're replicating that. So that's one example of a codependent relationship.
And I know so many of couples like that.
Mm-hmm.
Personally I know them, and also professionally I know them.
Right.
Right, and usually the female partner is the parent controlling part,
Mm-hmm.
and the male partner is the child part.
Well, interesting, because I've seen it both ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it both ways, and I don't know, statistically how that boils down, but I don't think it really matters, because the real issue is that neither one is getting to be their authentic true selves
Exactly,
in the
exactly.
relationship.
Yeah, I mean, you've seen a group that perhaps, I have seen less of, and I have seen a group that perhaps you have seen less of.
Exactly.
So that says that they both happens.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's a good, quick literature here right now, without giving a number on a stat, we
Yeah.
know that on both parts it happens.
Correct. Correct. So, where does this stem from? It stems from people who haven't emotionally developed uh, their own authentic true selves. So where they come from is what we call dysfunctional family systems. And a dysfunctional family system, we can simply define that as any family in which the behavior of the participants is more important than the emotions of the participants. So when the behavior becomes the things that people focus on, then people feel as though what they're thinking about and what they're feeling, it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is their behavior.
Right.
So what they do is they learn how to do behaviors that in some way make them fit in to the situation, but it leaves out who they really are and how they're really feeling. So as a result of not being able to communicate about their thoughts and feelings, there's a lot of miscommunication going on, and there's a lot of unhappiness and arguments. What we see a lot in therapy is couples coming in where they can't talk with each other in a civil way because they're busy arguing with each other.
Oh yes, I have some of those.
Yeah. And so that is a form of codependency that may be a little different than what we just described, where one person is trying to do everything for the other person and the other person is feeling smothered. What is it? Why are people in a relationship where all they do is argue with each other? And the answer to that is it's another form of codependency. And so why are people arguing? They're arguing by way of saying, if we could break the argument down, the argument would go something like this: I'm right and you're wrong.
Yes.
And then the other person goes, huh? What do you mean? I'm right and you're
Yeah,
wrong.
you're wrong. Yes.
And then the other person goes, what?
Yes.
I'm right and you're wrong. And then up the disciples go, right? right? Until they're almost coming to blows. Sometimes they do come to blows.
And this is how I describe it to my couples. I
Mm.
said, I have two people that they're playing, the ping pong,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So then as they get, at the middle of the game, so they get more heated and
They're hitting it harder.
they're hitting it harder, and they start, say, hey, I'm gonna,
I'm gonna whip your butt.
Yeah, all that. And then suddenly one of them finally, puts the final strike, and the game is over and they win. And then by that time, they both are out of breath.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so kind of, oh, you cheated, oh, you did it this way, or you hit the corner of the table, or they come up with so many. I said, this is what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing it slowly, and then you just hits up, and then it continues.
Exactly.
Until one of you finally strikes the other one.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then what do you get? Two tired people, two exhausted people, two people that they really don't know how you got a strike that, and you don't know how you played. You lost the whole idea of what the issue is.
And so,
because you're trying, like you said, I'm right and you're wrong.
Right.
No, I'm right and you're wrong, and then this is the game.
Yes. Yes. And so, going back to what we talked about a little while ago, the ego and the spirit, this is all about ego. And why is it about ego? Because the ego equates being safe. We talked about the ego's job is to make ourselves physically safe. The ego equates being safe with being right.
Yes.
So if I'm right, that means that the other person has to accept me for being right. They can't argue with somebody who's right. So I'm safe from criticism. I'm safe from being put down. I'm safe from the other person telling me that I'm less than, because I, after all, am right.
Yes, and most people rather being right than connected with each other.
Correct. The reason why people would rather be right than connected is because in their psychology, and this is all what I'm talking about, folks, is subconscious.
Right.
People, when I say this to people like look at me like, what are you talking about? They have no idea of this. What I'm talking about is at a deeper level of reality, but it happens so much, and it happens so often that what we've learned after many years of study and practice is that this is the way the ego operates.
So what is really interesting that, when I say this to my couples who are of this kind of codependent, group, they say, but don't you think what I'm saying is accurate? And yes, what they say is accurate. It's not the fact that what they say is inaccurate. Actually, most of the time, both sides are accurate.
Yes.
Right? However, the way they communicate it and the way that they don't hear the other side and they just believe that they have to be right is the issue.
Correct. Correct.
If they kind of calm down and if they kind of use a loving tone so that they can give each other time to hear the other person, then they can see the similarities of what they're saying, and they can look at the differences of what they're saying, and then merge the two conversation and come up with a solid whatever is going on.
But that can't happen.
That can't happen.
That can't happen when you feel, and I'm saying this, feel as though your life is on the line.
Yes. Sense of safety.
Sense of safety.
Yes.
Yeah. So it cannot happen as long as you believe that, and it's a subconscious belief. So people have to be helped to understand that this is what's going on subconsciously, and just saying it to a person outright isn't usually enough. You have to help the person overcome their resistance to learning, because their desire for physical survival is so powerful, and they feel as though, as a therapist, you're trying to take their safety away if you're telling them that there's another way to be.
Yes.
And so they're committed to this way of being that they believe has made them safe in the world, which is the idea that there's only one way, and that way is the way that I know, and I am right.
Yeah, and that's the way that they have managed to survive within difficulties, within trauma situations.
And you find that they come from upbringings where
Right.
that was a good safety survival strategy for
Exactly.
them as children.
Exactly. Yes. So when we introduce them to the other way of looking at the situation, it just becomes kind of, shock to them. They cannot comprehend it. They cannot connect to it,
Mhm.
right? They say, "Oh, you're siding with my wife, or you're siding with my husband."
Right.
So then comes, accusation, because as long as they don't have to look at themselves, they continue to feel safe.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and I do have some couples like that. And sometimes I tell them, well, we know one thing they're doing right, and that's fighting with each other. They know how to do it.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah,
you know
yeah, yeah, and it's very, very difficult, especially if you're working with a couple, and one partner gets it. They get that being right is not the most important thing, and the other person doesn't get it.
Right.
And you and I have worked on a couple of cases together where one partner got it and the other partner didn't get it.
Yes.
And it's very, very hard because the other partner is still locked into I need to be right. And if I'm not right, I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, then I'm not going to survive. But because it's a subconscious belief system, that person doesn't really understand what they're doing. So they keep on insisting that the other person or the therapist doesn't understand them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And I know I hear that in my sessions, that they say, but you're not hearing me. I'm saying that what part of what I said is not accurate.
Mm-hmm.
I said every part of it is accurate.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this idea of being right is so powerful that we find it extends throughout society, and you find a lot of people who seek power, either in politics or in industry and business,
Right.
are locked into being right. And there's so many people who've grown up in that environment that they believe that these people who talk about how right they are in fact right. So they support them, in politics and in business because they see it as a strength rather than as an ego function, and that person isn't really connected with their own with their own spirituality and their own the, and and their own
Sense of self.
their authentic true self.
Right.
Yes, the authentic true self is the spirit.
Right.
The ego can support the spirit, or the ego cannot support the spirit. So is the ego bad? The ego isn't bad. It just is how it's used. And if the ego is used by saying my way or the highway, or might makes right, then you're misusing that part of yourself. There's actually a book called The Ego is the Enemy, and I don't subscribe to that. I don't see the ego as the enemy, but I see that the ego can be the blocker that keeps us from recognizing the being part of the human being.
So let's talk more about that after our commercial
We'll
break.
talk more about that and more about codependence and addiction. We'll see you soon. Every Thursday afternoon beginning at 3 p.m. Join us.
Welcome back from our commercial break. This is Heart-to-Heart. I'm at KMET, 0 AM, ABC News Radio. Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here live. And our phone number here is 951-922 3532. And the reason we are announcing the phone number 951-922-3532 is because we would like to hear from you.
Indeed, indeed.
So we were talking about the ego, creating a sense of safety for us. And depending on how we feel, what are the aspects of safety for each person, and how codependency is a part of that.
Right. So in psychology, they have what they call ego defenses. And the ego defenses are those mechanisms in our mind that we use in order to protect our sense of safety. Those ego defenses are, and the biggest one, of course, is denial. We could do probably 100 programs on just denial.
Or we can say, for a start, it's not the river in
Egypt. It's not a river in Egypt, right? Yeah. But we're not going to talk about ego defenses right now. What I actually wanted to talk about for this last segment is something that came up in this book that I really like. It's sort of the Bible of codependence, and it's called Codependence: Healing the Human Condition by Charles Whitfield. It was written back, when was it written? I think in the 80s, late 80s maybe. And it's an excellent book about the ego and spirituality and codependence. And so one of the things in the book that I liked and I wanted to share was one of the characteristics and one of the things that people get confused about between codependence and spirituality is what he writes about, which is codependence and compassion, and what the difference is. Because people say, I'm very compassionate with my partner, and that may be true, or it may be that they're not really compassionate, but they're codependent. And how do you know the difference? So one of the aspects of codependency means that you attempt to try to control. And so when you're codependent with your partner, you are trying to fix, or you're trying to rescue, or you're trying to change or control them. And you're doing that, as we stated earlier, because you want them to be who you think they need to be in order for you to feel safe in the world. So you are going to make sure that they are that they feel dependent on you, and that they conform to your idea of what is a good partner. And so you're always trying to fix or correct or control them. That's an aspect of codependence. When you're compassionate with someone, none of those things exist. So when you're compassionate with your partner, what that means is you listen to what they're feeling, you listen to what they're thinking, and you allow them to have their thoughts and feelings. And if their thoughts and feelings affect you, you listen carefully before you respond. And then when you do respond, your first response is to let them know that you heard them. That's different than when you're codependent. When you're codependent, your first response is to make sure that you are correcting them into what you think they should think or feel about the situation or about you. So your first response is not to listen, and it's not to let them know that you heard them. Your first response is to tell them how you feel, or what you think is right about how they should feel, think, or behave. And that's a big, big difference, because it feels, it's interesting. As a therapist, I have had many, many people walk into my office, talk for a full hour, and I may have said 10 words, or I may have said 2 words. But what I'm doing is I'm looking at them, looking in the eye, and I'm listening carefully, and I'm letting them know that I'm following them, and that I understand. And regardless of how much input I've given them, they often will get up and say, "This has been a great session."
Well, there has been a great because you've been so compassionate, but not interrupting them.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. And I've had people come in and say, "I just need somebody to listen."
Yeah.
You know, yeah, because oftentimes we have a hard time finding that in the world.
Yes.
Because people are so egocentric that they have to be, that they're sort of in competition with you to tell you what they think, rather than really listening to how you think and feel, and then staying curious. Oh, so you feel this way. Why is that? Give me some examples. Let me understand.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a codependent actually makes all those decisions for the other person.
Yes.
But the compassionate person allows the other person to be themselves, to be who they are at a comfort place, emotionally and physically, so they can explore whatever they want to say or whatever that there is to talk about.
Right. Right. So let's say if you're in a relationship and you're upset with your partner and you are codependent and you start telling your partner everything that they did wrong, if your partner is codependent, your partner will defend themselves, tell you how you made a mistake, and then turn it around and make you wrong. And that's the beginning of I'm right and you're wrong.
That's the beginning of playing ping pong.
Playing ping pong, yeah, yeah. So with compassion, you're listening to understand. And when you listen to understand and you're really listening to understand, that means that you're not feeling as though your life is on the line because the other person is saying something that you don't like or agree with. That's a big, big step forward, right, in emotional, psychological, and spiritual development.
Yeah, the fact that if you listen to what the other person is saying, it doesn't mean that you're wrong, and it doesn't mean your life is in danger, and it doesn't mean that you're losing your position in life.
Right, but people believe that they are. Right. And since they believe that, and that belief is a subconscious belief, they don't, right, they don't know that they're acting in accordance with that belief. They act as though that belief were accurate. And so then you go back into your ping pong game in which actually nobody wins.
Right.
But it seems like somebody wins, yeah, for the moment. But remember, if you're in a relationship with someone and you get your way and the other person feels that they lost, they will subconsciously harbor a resentment. Mm-hmm. They will then wait until another event happens, and then they will get back at you. Yes, so it's not a win-win situation, because ultimately there is a time that one does the final strike, and then there is another time that the other one does the final strike. Exactly. Which by itself, kind of maintains that codependent dynamic between the two of them. Exactly. Right. Exactly. And this is the danger part, where in fact, I do have actually, a couple of couples like that they severely argue, that they severely fight, mm-hmm, and at the end of the day, they love each other. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. For a moment. For a moment. Exactly. For a moment, until their ego, yeah, gets stimulated again. It's interesting, I'm not going to get into how I handled the matter of the therapy for them, but it's very interesting. One of them comes in, the couple, and they come in after a heated argument, and here they start to argue. So then I need to kind of intervene and all of that. And they say, "Oh, okay, I got it. We got it. We're fine. We will never do that again." And they leave my office 10 minutes later. 10 minutes later. They call, "Is urgent, please call us. We are fighting." Mm-hmm. 10 minutes, mm-hmm, literally. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because again, it's a subconscious belief that they're fighting for their lives. But if you say that to them, they'll look at you like you're crazy. Yes. Well, no, What we're fighting over is whether, and this is true, this is an actual situation, whether he put the garbage in the right garbage disposal, garbage bin. Because we've talked about it so many times, and he knows that he should put the plastic in with the plastic, and he keeps doing it, and that's what we're fighting over.
Right.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah. And
they always have something valid to talk about.
And that's their belief that that's what they're fighting over.
Yes.
Yeah. As though two rational human beings couldn't work that out if they were being rational human beings.
Exactly.
Right.
You know, it is they use a subject that's accurate, they use a subject that's tangible, and they focus on that versus, you know, focusing on how they're communicating.
Right. So the other part, another aspect of being an ego versus being in your authentic true self, i.e. your spirit, is to know when you're discussing with the other person, do you have an attachment to the outcome?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Because as soon as you have an attachment to the outcome, then all bets are off in terms of what you will do in that discussion. Because if the other person sees it differently and doesn't want the same outcome that you do, then you're back into a fight for the other person for survival.
Yeah.
The reason you have an attachment to the outcome is because you believe, and this again is a subconscious belief, that if you lose the argument and you don't have that outcome, that you will not exist. And I'm going to say this over and over again, because people listening to us need to start recognizing that that's really what's going on inside of them. Not that they intellectually think that they're going to die. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is a feeling inside, and that feeling is very powerful. That feeling says, if this doesn't happen, I'll die. If I don't get the tickets to that concert, I won't exist. If I don't get my way in terms of what school our kids are going to go to, I won't exist. That's the feeling state. And the more people recognize that that's what they're really arguing over, the better they're going to be able to modulate and talk reasonably and rationally with the other person.
And that's such a, you know, important, you know, part of life, that parents actually put their children in a corner in order to achieve what they want. So that's the, you know, attachment to the outcome.
Attachment to the outcome.
Talking about, you know, unfortunately, we are at the end of our program, and this is a hot topic. Why don't we continue with this the next time?
Sounds good.
Wonderful. So we thank you for joining us. We thank you for spending the past 2 hours with us, and we would like to hear from you. So please call us, email us, and don't forget that until the next time we meet at 3 p.m. next Thursday, and then at 4 p.m. next Thursday. All you need is love.
All you need is love.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye-bye.